Gotcha. Sinners, weapons, heretic, smile. What do all of these have in common? Not only are they all words, they're all the titles of some of the most recent popular horror movies. But the modern genre of horror would not be where it is today if not for the pioneers in the days of early film. Among the most notable of these is the Universal Monster Cinematic Universe. Before the Avengers, before Iron Man, before Star Wars, even before Superman himself. Back in 1931, Universal Pictures released Dracula and Frankenstein. These movies were so successful that Universal put out another 28 films over the next 20 or so years. What made these films notable besides their popularity was that they were part of a larger cinematic universe. Dracula and Frankenstein and the Wolfman all existed in their separate films, but in a few of the movies, they met. Imagine seeing all of your favorite movie monsters all together in the same movie. It was like the Avengers for the silent generation. It was unprecedented, I think. As I mentioned, Universal made 30 of these monster movies. And I did the math, and October has almost exactly 30 days. So I decided to watch one movie per day for every day of October, and then on the final day, Halloween, I would release this video. And now I'll share my thoughts on the Universal Monsters Cinematic Universe. As a quick note, sorry if the audio is not very good. I went back to college and I forgot to take my microphone with me because I forgot that I make YouTube videos sometimes. I also broke my tripod, so let's get on with it. That's it. That's the video. Hi, it's Felix. From the video you're watching. Sorry if my beard's a little whack. I had mutton chops for Halloween and they're still kind of growing back in. You may remember from about 30 seconds ago when I said that this video was supposed to come out on Halloween. And you might also notice that it's past Halloween. Let me explain to you the tale of my hubris that led to this moment. My first mistake was making one video about 30 movies. My second mistake was watching those 30 movies in 30 days and then on the 31st day coming out with that video. Do you know how long it takes to recap 30 movies? This video is coming up on an hour. You know how long it takes to edit all of that? A long time. I got like homework and stuff I gotta do. You really thought I could do that? You're an idiot. This is your fault. I'll actually never know how long it would have taken to edit all of that because I got a little more than halfway through and I realized that the content was not interesting enough to justify an hour-long video. And I've spent so much time and effort on it already that I want to try and salvage this sunk cost fallacy. So I'm going to try to redo it quicker. Let's keep it under 20 minutes. Instead of going movie by movie, I'll go monster by monster. If there's any demand to see the hour-long version, then let me know. Until then, it's just going to stay on my computer, and no one will ever see it. The first monster is Dracula. Dracula was originally played by Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi only played him twice, in the first Dracula and then in the Abbott and Costello one. And Bela Lugosi is great as Dracula. Everything iconic about Dracula, everything that they parody about him in Hotel Transylvania, comes from Bela Lugosi. The whole look, the whole fit, the accent.
Van Helsing, a most distinguished scientist whose name we know, even in the wild of Transylvania.
Even though Dracula was originally a book and there was another movie, Nosferatu, before this, Lugosi made this iconic. We also get Dracula's daughter. She's played by Gloria Holden. The son of Dracula, played by Lon Chaney Jr. He's not a great Dracula. In the House of Dracula and House of Frankenstein movies, he's played by John Carradine, he's alright. It's interesting seeing the transformation into a bat evolve over the years. The first couple, they don't really show it, and then they try a few different things. The vampire lore is pretty standard, but There are a couple things that were interesting. The vampires in these can also turn into wolves, which I haven't seen that anywhere else. And there's also a scene where a kid gets bit by a vampire, and in order to prevent him from dying or turning into a vampire or whatever, they draw crosses over the bite marks, which that's something I've never heard of either. That's interesting. Also, the whole Dracula family is really good at having just great entrances.
How long have you had those little marks?
Marks? What could have caused them, Professor?
Count Dracula.
Sometimes it appears as a bat, sometimes as a werewolf, and sometimes as a small cloud of swirling vapor. In this way, it can move unseen among its enemies.
Next is Frankenstein. They actually do acknowledge in one of the movies how people call the monster Frankenstein.
Why, 9 out of 10 people call that misshapen creature of my father's experiments.
Frankenstein.
He's originally played by Boris Karloff, who's great, phenomenal. He plays him in Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and The Son of Frankenstein. In Ghost of Frankenstein, he's played by Lon Chaney Jr., who does an okay job. Bela Lugosi actually plays him in Wolfman Meets Frankenstein. Then Glenn Strange plays him in House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, and the Abbott and Costello one. And everyone except for Boris Karloff just does an okay job. There's also this movie called Young Frankenstein, which came out in the 70s, and it parodies these old Frankenstein movies. And I watched this movie growing up, but I had never seen the original source material, so it's interesting watching that first, and then now watching these and picking up on some of the things that it was parodying. I did rewatch Young Frankenstein after watching these. Very funny movie, very effective parody. Highly recommend watching that. Okay, next we got The Wolfman. The first iteration is Werewolf of London, which is... Later on, there's a She-Wolf of London, which is interesting because there's actually not a werewolf in that movie. It was all a hoax. For all the rest of them, he's played by Lon Chaney Jr. And while he's not a great Dracula and he's an okay Frankenstein, he's perfect as the Wolfman. There's some characters where people are like, oh, he was born to play that. Like Robert Downey Jr. was born to play Iron Man. Back in the 40s and 50s, kids were probably saying, oh, Lon Chaney Jr., he was born to play the Wolfman. He's just so good at playing a tragic character. He only has one solo movie, Wolfman, and then he shows up in a lot of crossovers. Wolfman Meets Frankenstein, House of Dracula, House of Frankenstein, and then Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. The next monster on the list is the Mummy. In the first one, he's played by Boris Karloff, who does a great job as always. But it's kind of interesting because he doesn't really play a mummy. Like, he's not wrapped in bandages and, like, going after people. He's, like, kind of just disguised as a normal guy. In all the rest of the movies, the mummy's more stereotypical. But he's played by a few different actors. Lon Chaney Jr. plays him at one point. He plays everybody. He's in basically all these movies. The thing about the Mummy movies is that they're all the exact same. The Abbott and Costello one's a little different, but besides that, they're all the same plot. There's an evil Egyptian dude who revives the mummy with these magic tanna leaves, and then there's some Egyptian princess that's been reincarnated as this young Egyptian girl who most of the time is the least Egyptian person you've ever seen. The mummy kills some people, he kidnaps the girl, the archaeologist killed the evil Egyptian guy, saved the girl, and burned the mummy. There you go, you've seen all of them now. And even though the mummy dies at the end of every movie, he's always magically revived in the next one. That's the annoying part about these movies. None of the monsters ever actually die. Sure, they die at the end of the movie, but then the next movie, they're back. Yeah, Dracula in the last one, he got burned by sunlight, which we said, kills vampires, they can't recover from that. But yeah, he's back in the new one. The Wolfman, yeah, he was shot with a silver bullet. The only thing that can actually kill a Wolfman is a silver bullet. But no, he's better now. Usually, you're lucky if you get an explanation as to why they've recovered. And continuity is all over the place. Oh, Frankenstein learned how to talk in the last movie, but in this one he can't anymore.
Friend, good.
Friends, good.
Well, he forgot. It was a long time between those two movies. It's not, talking isn't just a thing you remember how to do. Oh, in the last Frankenstein movie, they put Igor's brain into the monster's body, and then he burned down in fire. You really think we care about that? You really think we're not going to start the next movie with the monster being frozen in the ice cave underneath Frankenstein's castle with his old brain again? If you thought we weren't going to do that, you're an idiot. Okay? And don't give me that, oh, but it's a new movie. It's not a sequel. It's a new continuity. It is a direct sequel, and we're actually going to make several references to the last movie, including returning characters. Okay? Keep up. Oh, and apparently there's an ice cave under Frankenstein's castle, which seems to be the monster's respawn point, because there's like 2 or 3 movies where he died in the last one, and now he's frozen in this ice cave. I don't know. Don't even ask. These movies are a mess. Let's move on. Next is The Invisible Man. These movies are interesting for a few reasons. For one, every movie is a different person. We never see any of the invisible people return. The second thing that makes them interesting is that they're not all horror movies. The first couple are horror movies. The Abbott and Costello one is like horror comedy. But then you have The Invisible Woman, which is just straight up a comedy. And this movie is fantastic. But here's the thing.
Oh, Professor! Where are you?
Professor! Professor!
Did someone say professor?
No.
And then Invisible Agent, which takes place in 1942, the year it came out. And that's just a war movie. The Invisible Man in this one uses his invisibility to get intel from the Nazis. And he stops them from bombing New York.
Do what you like in Quito, but you are still in Germany.
I've never been more aware of it.
Also, the invisible people seem to have the highest survival rate. I think only one of them dies at the end of the movie. That's the original. But all the rest, they live at the end, whereas every other monster dies. The original Invisible Man is played by Claude Rains, at least according to the Floating Lips and Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Claude Rains was the Invisible Man.
The only other notable actor really is Vincent Price plays him in one of the movies, and it's one of his earlier movies, so he's kind of younger. He doesn't even have the mustache yet. You only see him for a couple seconds at the end of the movie, but he does a pretty good job too. But what's cool about these movies is the special effects, especially in the first one. Watching that, I was just mesmerized by all these effects they were doing, especially for 1933. I was like, holy cow, how are they doing this? I did watch a behind-the-scenes video, and apparently when you're working with actual film, instead of the green screen technique, you got the black screen. And when you overlay 2 pieces of film, anything that's black is basically like PNG. It just disappears. So for the invisible person, they get black velvet between their skin and their clothes, and they film him against the black background. And then they get a separate shot of the empty room. And then they interlay those 2 shots, so when the invisible man starts taking his clothes off, it looks like he's invisible. Okay, for the next one, I'm going to use some of the previous footage I had recorded, because I did this part with my roommate, and I feel like if I don't use any of that footage, then I was wasting his time. First, we got Phantom of the Opera. This one's the only one that's like a standalone. There's only one of these. I know it says Incel of the Opera. This is the only version of this movie, or I haven't read the book either, or seen any other movie, so this is my only exposure to this. But it seems like for these movies, they have a wheel with Claude Rains, Lon Chaney Jr., Bela Lugosi, and Boris Karloff. And when they need an actor, they spin it, and they see who it lands on. And this time it landed on Claude Rains.
Mm-hmm. I think this was also the only one in color.
Yeah, that's true.
That made it a bit special. So, plot. There's a violinist, Claude Rains. He's violinist for the opera. He gets kicked out because his hands are shaky or something, arthritis. And he's obsessed with one of the singers, so he secretly funds her, has been for the past while. Tries to publish the music. He gets some acid on his face, which is where the half mask comes into play. And he is wanted for murder because he murders not the person who splashed the acid, but someone who stole his music. Hangs out in the opera. Kills a bunch of people because he really loves that one singer. And somehow gets a piano into the basement cellar by himself. I'm not sure how he pulled that one off.
Yeah, a full grand piano. Too.
Yeah. As a backup plan to catch him, they play his concerto that actually wasn't stolen. Liszt plays it, famous pianist, and find him, wall crumbles after 1 or 2 shots somehow, and he dies. Everyone ends up happy besides him.
Also, his lair was underneath the opera, and it all crumbled down, so it didn't really address the integrity of the opera house itself, but probably not good. Alright, the last monster is the Black Gooning creature, or Creature from the Black Lagoon. These are, okay, they're kind of all the same movie, too. The creature's a pretty scary monster, except when you show his face. There's one scene where they capture him in this cage, and every time they cut back to the creature, me and my roommates would just burst out laughing. It's so funny for some reason. Also, in these movies, the creature's totally the victim every time. They come to his lagoon, and they're like, we're gonna either capture or kill this guy. And then they get mad when he fights back. Leave him alone. That is all the monsters, but there is one more thing I wanted to talk about. At the end of this cinematic universe, we get a few Abbott and Costello movies. If you're unfamiliar with who Abbott and Costello are, you've almost certainly heard of their very famous comedy routine, Who's on First.
We have who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third. That's what I want to find out. I want you to tell me the names of the fellas on the St. Louis team. I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
We have Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which also features Dracula and the Wolfman. We have Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man and Meet the Mummy. Meet the Frankenstein's the best one out of the 3. It's the funniest, I think, and it's also cool to see Bela Lugosi back as Dracula, and also Dracula interacting with Wolfman and Frankenstein's monster. Because there's a couple other crossover movies, House of Dracula, House of Frankenstein, but Dracula never really interacts with the other monsters, which is kind of weird. So it's cool seeing all 3 of them interact, all 3 of them fighting. Great movie. And it was a good change of pace, because as we were getting towards the end of the movies, there was just a lot of bad sequels. So it was nice seeing some good ones. For most of these monsters, the general rule is that the first movie is pretty good, and the sequels are not that great. Dracula is really good. Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein are good. The original Invisible Man, the first Mummy is pretty good too. And the first Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. is also really good. Plus the Abbott and Costello movies. For my conclusion, I'm going to refer back to the older footage because that was concise enough. And you get to see my Wolverine costume. Happy Halloween. Were these movies good? Some of them. The like origin stories were pretty good. The sequels, maybe not so much. Were they bad? I wouldn't say that, but I also watched The Room and the new War of the Worlds movie this month, so my standard is pretty high for bad movies. Overall, there's something kind of charming about these movies. They're very different from modern horror. There's no jump scares. There's no like body gore. Pretty much the plot of every single one of them is there's some guy, some monster out there who's just going around killing people. And that's it. Was this worth making a video about? I don't know, but I did. So I hope you enjoyed it, and happy Halloween, even though it's almost certainly at least November. Bye.